Mr. Barry Katz, the real Jerry Maguire, or should we say, the Ray Donovan of comedy.
Wow.
You watched Ray Donovan, right?
Amazing performances.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you... And some of these people in the show you haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
And it just shows you that if you have the skill set in anything, it never goes away. It never goes away.
Right, exactly. But you're a man that gets it done, so you're the Ray Donovan of show business.
Well, you're getting it done. I mean, I don't know, your audience can't see this, but this is like, literally, I've been to film sets at Universal and Lionsgate that don't have this many bells and whistles. This is incredible.
But try, you know.
I feel very, very important, and your hair is so well coiffed and so well cut, you literally could get into a hurricane and your hair would never move. It's incredible.
Well, this is GI Blues style, Elvis GI Blues style.
Is that what it's called? Is that the GI Blues?
Yeah.
Is that Elvis in the movie Change of Habit, where he was dating Mary Tyler Moore as a
GI Blues
nun?
from 1957 or something.
Oh, God.
When he had a little bit of the army look. Well, congratulations on all your success, and particularly recent success with your podcast.
Thanks, man.
Obviously, we all know that you're a legendary manager.
I don't know any of that, so you'll have to keep reminding me.
All right, we go back a little bit because I interviewed Jay
Mohr
10 or maybe 11 years ago, and you were pushing me to interview Dane Cook, and very persistent. So you made an impression on me that you were really there for your client.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, but you know, the thing is, when I interviewed Jay, we hung out and had lunch, and you know, of course Jay's great fun. And we both love Harvey Keitel, so he was doing Harvey Keitel forever. Harvey Keitel, Christopher Walken, Joe Pesci, but he kept putting in Barry Katz, and he goes, "Yeah, this is Barry Katz." I'm like, "That's your manager, right?" And I couldn't figure out why he was putting in Barry Katz along with his top impersonations. And you know, come back 10 years later, I hear you on his podcast. What's it called now?
More Stories.
More Stories.
That was an amazing thing that happened. First of all, I just wanted to say I'm honored that you wanted to interview me. I feel like.
No, I've been a big fan from your appearances, like many people. And then when you started your podcast, I started listening from episode 1. And now, what episode are you on to now?
Like, 105 or 107.
God, already.
I just can't, it's when you say that, it just, I know it sounds odd, but I can't even quantify that you've listened to I can't even, it's so hard to believe when people come up to me and say that, because when you start something, especially, I'm old, I knew God. I went to high school with him. I'm up there. And so when you start something later on as a hobby, and you're doing it like in mornings and lunchtimes at night, and you're editing on Sundays, and you start at 0-0, it's kind of, you never know what's going to happen. I know as a manager what my goals are, but they say those who can't manage. And so I've never done it for myself. And even to this day, like you say, you listen to everyone and all the success of it. I'm a social networking, I'm almost special needs when it comes to that. You give me a client and they say, I need this, this, and this on all these social and I'll make it happen. I worked with Dane Cook in the beginning, and he had God knows how many people on MySpace, 3 million. And he just said, hey, help me do this, help me do that, and I did. But when you do it for yourself, it's kind of, you feel kind of dirty doing, like, oh, let me work on my Twitter profile. Ugh. It's like, I don't, it feels weird. So people have to find this podcast sort of on their own, because I don't really, I think I send one message out a week on, maybe to a certain number of people.
But you see the numbers pick up every week almost, right?
It's unbelievable, and the people at iTunes have been so, they flew down here from, is it Cupertino or where they are, and they're so supportive, and they're about the show, and they will take care of the show with ads to promote it, and it's just so flattering. And so when you say stuff like you've listened to everyone, it's just hard to understand. Granted, nobody starts anything with any effort. You don't have literally everybody. There's like 17 to 35 pieces of equipment here. Okay, you don't start assembling this kind of equipment and doing these interviews if you're thinking to yourself, I'm just going to do this and maybe it'll become a failure. You do it because you know in your heart you can be successful.
Right.
And that I knew that I could. How I knew was this, and I think I've shared it on the podcast maybe a couple of times. When you sit in a meeting with a network president or a movie producer that produced Terminator and Basic Instinct, or a television creator who did Everybody Loves Raymond or All in the Family, and you meet with them alone and you get in your car, you just sit in your car and it's like you're on some kind of a drug. You're like, my God, I can't believe I got to be in that room with them. And then you realize that you were the only one in the room and no one else got to see that. And so I started doing the research on the podcast and seeing that no one was interviewing these people, and these network executives especially had never been interviewed for a podcast. And Norman Lear never did a podcast. He's 93. But Doug Herzog, who's the president of Viacom and 7 Networks, never did a podcast. Chris Albrecht, who was the president of HBO and now Starz, never did a podcast. Suzanne Daniels, who's the president of MTV, Lifetime, and the W, never did a podcast. So you're like a fly on the wall, and we're just having a conversation like we're at lunch, and it's wonderful.
I think your audience, not only showbiz people, you relate well to the people with the regular jobs, because the guests you have, if someone's successful like a Kevin Mock, or you hear their low times and their rise again and so forth. I think that encourages people too. I mean, you're surprised at how it's picked up, but there is something there. I mean, I see how people can relate to all this and go, oh wow, their credits are all over the TV now, but they had low times too that they had to overcome. No one's doing series of these interviews. That's why it's very unique. And I know from episode 1 that if this continues like this, it's going to be really interesting.
Well, that means a lot. I mean, that is something that that's probably the biggest thing that I didn't foresee. I didn't foresee that a plethora of more people outside of the entertainment business listen to this podcast. I mean, the fact that the emails I get from people from all over the world that aren't even in the entertainment business. I guess I thought that maybe it would just be the entertainment business and the people who are interested in that, but it's not. So that makes me feel better, and that's probably what's expanded it so much, because it does apply to everything. Everything applies to, I just interviewed Sandy Kleiman, who, when he was at CAA, he represented Robert Redford, De Niro, Kevin Costner. And sometimes people say the most impactful things, and they even seem so simple. And the one thing he said he said when you go into something, make a commitment that when you come out of it, you're a better person and you've left your footprint and your mark not only on yourself, but on the people around you and as many people as you can in the world. Don't go into a job and a year later leave the job and be the same person and have the same knowledge and have the same patterns in your life. Go in with the commitment of when you leave and you go out the door that you are going to be a better person, and everybody around you that you touched is a better person, and that you made an impact on more and more people that you possibly can. And I thought that was really it just seems so simple, but it's something that we don't really think about, because in every job there is, let's say somebody's listening now who's working, I don't know, let's say they're working at a clothing store, and there's 20 people who work in the clothing store doing sales throughout the week. It's a big clothing store. Well, there's one person who's going to be the best salesperson, and there's one person who's going to be the 20th. What's the chances you're going to do anything or get where you want to go being the 20th? You have no shot. Just have no shot. But if you get to the number one person, then people take notice. What the fuck happened? This person came in here, they were number 20, now they're number 1. You know, one of my sons, my oldest son, was in Little League. Probably kill me if I said this, but he gets to the Little League team. It's a great team. He's been practicing with the team. First game, he's hitting 9th. And he's like in right field. Doesn't get any lower than that. The 9th out of 9 players, and you're playing right field. Now, I know Yasiel Puig plays right field, but I'm just saying in Little League, right field is...
Right.
And he had a talk with me. He said, Daddy, I'm like, you know, I'm like, looks like I'm the worst person on the team. I'm batting 9th. I said, do you want to make your mark? Yes, Daddy, I want to make my mark. Are you working harder than everybody else in practice? I guess I'm not. I said, if you work harder than everybody else in practice, will you get to where you want to go? Some great players, Daddy. I don't know. I hope so. What about if you work extra time? Yeah, I mean, I think if I work hard in practice and I work extra time, I think I could. Maybe. I said, okay, well, let's get a coach. We'll start with once a week. You'll go for an hour, and you'll work hard in your practices. But I need to know you're committed to this. Yes, I am, Daddy. I want to do this. The end of the season, batting 5th, playing the infield, third base, shortstop, second base, and made the all-star team.
Wow.
So he put in that extra hour for 16 weeks. So that was 16 extra hours he put in. 16 extra hours more than every other player. And those 16 hours helped him. And I also went with him on Saturday mornings for 2 hours and threw to him and did whatever. So we're talking over 50 hours extra that he put in that everybody else did, and that's why he moved up.
But he had to have the desire to make use of the time, because when I used to teach tennis in New York, we had busloads of all these kids from these after-school tennis programs. They didn't want to go there, but the parents wanted them to. They come for years. They can hit a little bit, but the top courts, they're kids that are nationally ranked because they actually wanted to play. But there are others that are just going through the motion and don't want to take advantage of it. But that extra hour, he must have really focused, and his goal was to get better.
Yeah, and it's there's so many decisions that you make in your life that you don't even know if they are the right. You just have to go with. Look, I mentioned my kids. I just went on a trip with my kids, and through Apple Music and streaming, they discovered Eminem. So I'm sort of like driving, and in the background I hear the song Stan. Mm-hmm. Now, for those of you who don't know the song Stan, this is a true story, I believe, of Eminem and a fan that he had that was trying to reach him and got more and more frustrated, and by the end of the song had his girlfriend who was pregnant, bound and gagged in the back of the trunk, and had taken pills and was ready to kill himself and drive off a bridge, which he did, and killed himself and the woman and the unborn baby. And then the end of the song is Eminem reading off the letter that he wrote to him, not knowing that this was the guy, and he was sending him a hat and an autograph, and then he realized it was the guy. Anyway, so I'm listening, and I'm like, guys, I pulled over, I'm like, guys, could you just stop that song for a second? I said, who turned you on that song? No, just found it, Daddy. Have you listened to that before? Yes, Daddy, we listened to it one time before. And I'm looking at my two boys, and I'm thinking to myself, and I just said, probably 99% of the parents that I know would never let their 10 and 11-year-old listen to this song. This is really harsh stuff. This is real life. This guy's had a hard life. And I don't know if this is the kind of content you should listen to. And I said, can I just think about this for a second while we're in the car? Yeah, Daddy. And I took like about 5 minutes, and I said, you know what? I said, I don't really care right now what other parents would do, because I think to myself, this guy is a genius. And this is his life, and this is a life that you haven't seen. And yes, he's using harsh words, and he's swearing. And there's horrible things happening in this thing. But this was his life. And I'm trusting the both of you at a young age to know that this is his life. Learn from his life. Learn how grateful you should be for the kind of life that you've been fortunate to have. But also know as you go on in life, you're going to meet people who have tremendous obstacles in their life. This guy had nothing, and now he's one of the biggest stars in the world because he believed in himself and he had hard work. And throughout that time, as big as he got, there's still setbacks like this fan and this thing that happened. And that he's got to walk into life every day knowing that he was partially, indirectly responsible for the death of 3 people, even though he didn't even do anything. Things are going to happen in life that you can't understand, and I think it's important to listen to this music, but only if you promise me that you're not going to use this language in front of your friends. You're not going to talk about these kind of things to grown-ups or whatever. You're going to absorb it, feel it, and if you want to share it with one of your friends, fine, but know who you're talking to. And I will allow you to listen to this music, because my feeling is in my life, whenever I've been next to geniuses or around geniuses, it doesn't matter what the language is, it doesn't matter how it's presented. What matters is that you're being influenced by some of the greatest minds out there. And Eminem is one of the greatest minds out there, and he's an example of the American dream. You can start with nothing, have nothing but $1 and a dream, but you have talent, and you work hard, and you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you can make it happen. But again, you're going to have to deal with setbacks when you have nothing, and you're going to have to learn to have setbacks when you have everything. And then if you can promise me that you'll understand this, you can listen to any Eminem song you want as long as you want. So we promised, Daddy. And all through the trip, they were listening to Lose Yourself, Rap God, Mockingbird, Stan, and all these songs. And it was cringeworthy because, the language was so harsh and things are happening, but I knew that in my mind for them, that was a decision I was going to make, and I was hoping and praying that I made the right decision. But I don't know if I did or not, but I'm going to go with my gut, and I hope that they become more worldly and better off for it.
Mhm.
And time will tell.
Right. Wow.